Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani back with another episode of Rudy's Common Sense. Today we are focusing on a subject maybe that means more to the future of America than anything else, the education of our children. And we have with us people who really know about it. First, we're going to talk to a parent, a very concerned parent, but also a woman who is publishes some very, very excellent articles. She's a very, very excellent writer. She's a political consultant. She's an organizer. And I'll let her tell you about her involvement in this and how it came about. But you've probably seen her on television. She's excellent on television. Keisha King. Keisha, how are you? It's a great pleasure to have you.
I am well, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for having me.
So now, Keisha, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got involved in this issue of education of children, and particularly the 1619 Project, the critical race theory, all of that.
Sure. So I've been learning about critical race theory for probably over a year now because of the Marxist ties that it has. So I was first introduced through like the economic side, but then I kept reading and I found people like Antonio Gramsci, who introduced the cultural Marxism. And cultural Marxism says they didn't get the type of revolution that they wanted to get with the economic side of Marxism. So they felt like they needed to infiltrate more of the society, the sociology side of it, infiltrating institutions, schools, academics. And so and that's what they've been spending time doing. So I started learning about these things, learning about these writers like Kimberly Crenshaw, Derek Bell, and really studying Robin DiAngelo, studying what they were about and what the overarching theme is. Just to simplify it, is that they feel that America is intrinsically racist, and there is no way to remove or move past racism in America. That idea turns into white, male, heterosexual, able-bodied people being deemed oppressors and everyone else being deemed oppressed. And these are they are permanent statuses according to these writers. And that is, it's untenable. That is not something that we can expect to have a productive society, thinking that we have just permanent oppressors and oppressed people in our nation. We have come so far. I do not understand why in the world we would take on this idea that we need to revert to oppressing and oppressed and, white people or white supremacy and white privilege. It is antithetical to what we really believe as Americans.
So isn't this, I go back to the old days when there was, the communist threat and the Cold War and doing FISA warrants on communist spies. And it seems to me they really just a very simple change. The communist theory going back to the 1850s and then taking over Russia and China there was the rich and the poor. The rich were the bourgeoisie, and the poor were called the proletariat, the working people. And the rich oppressed the poor. And the only way society would be free is if the rich were basically eliminated, everybody was equal, and everybody got exactly the same amount of money. That's called redistribution of wealth. And then it quickly became that the people who were deciding on how much money you became multimillionaires, billionaires. So now we have the Russian and the Chinese oligarchs, who are probably much worse capitalist entrepreneurs than anything we know of. I mean, they're ones who kill constantly. And this is the history of communism, 27 times. So how did these people, 100 years later, want to borrow that theory as opposed to Martin Luther King, who laid out, the best thing for us to do is to realize we're the same. We're basically the same, that our skin color is an accident. It's a something, just like some of us are tall, some of us are short, some of us are big and strong, some of us aren't as big and strong. We do have differences. We're legally equal, but we're not perfectly the same. How did this come about? How did this enter, and how did it get into the schools?
Well, they were very methodical. They were very patient. They were very intentional in infusing our institutions, our academic institutions, with this type of ideology. From what I can see, from what I've read, it started around in the late 80s, early 90s, where Kimberly Crenshaw came from UCLA teaching this. And from there, it's sort of it's just been infiltrating slowly throughout our society. And that's where you get this idea of the Equality Act, which is impossible to do. There is no way. The idea that equity, that everyone, every institution that you look at, that, there's going to be an equal amount of people in these identity groups to, be represented. I mean, I have 3 siblings, all from the same mom, all from the same father, grew up in the same home, and we all went into different things. Some of us are good at one thing or another, others are better at another thing. So that if you can't get equity within one household, how in the world are you going to get equity in a whole country? It is impossible. It is an impossible goal to meet. And it's just another way to redistribute our wealth.
We'll be back in a few minutes. I accomplished a lot in 2020, exposing the truth, establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Welcome back, and let's continue with our interview. Well, it's like if you have a race and 4 people are racing, they're not all going to finish first. Somebody's going to finish first, maybe 2 will tie for second, and 1 will finish fourth. But then they would make everyone win the race, which means no one won the race, and no one strives for excellence anymore, which is how socialist societies decline. Now, how did you, first of all, you have 2 children, correct? Did we establish that you have 2 children? One is 14 and one is 12. And they are educated in, where are they going to school?
They're in the public, one is in the public school system and one is in private school here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. And let's talk about the public schools for a moment. So as a parent, not only with your own child, but talking to other parents, what's your experience been, up until now? And has it changed due to the pandemic in any way?
Well, it certainly has changed. I became a lot more aware of what these teachers were doing as far as the critical race theory is concerned and how it was being introduced to our children, because it's not like they have a book called Critical Race Theory. They're not like, okay, boys and girls, let's just everybody open up your critical race theory book. It's not like that. They weave it into official curriculum. And that's why it's hard to detect, because you hear these people saying, they're not teaching critical race theory. These people are just, making a big deal out of nothing. No, they really are, but it's not official curriculum. What they're doing is weaving it into regular curriculum. So for instance, my daughter, her first week in school, this last school year, she was asked what pronouns she wanted to go by. Well, that was a red flag to me because my daughter is not, she has never expressed anything like that. She's not interested in anything like that. That is of no concern to her. So I had a problem with this language arts teacher even presenting these types of ideas to her. So that was my red flag to really pay attention to what was going on. And so when the pandemic happened and all that, I started just talking to my daughter to let her know to be very aware of certain types of conversations. And she actually recorded a conversation where I heard for myself critical race theory being taught. And what happened was the kids they had a series of books that they were going to be going over. And what she did was she took one title of a book. And in that book, it just happened to have some racial themes or whatever, which, yes, we need to talk about those types of things. Okay, fine, no problem with that. But what the lesson of the day turned into was just all the kids complaining about their perceived grievances in life. The entire class that day was just all these kids talking about what they believed was some discrimination or oppression, or it went into LGBTQ and just all of these different things. There was no real lesson in it. It was just a complaint session. And that wasn't educating our children. That was not informing them of like different cultures and different ways to, how we need to respect people and judge people by their character. There was none of that. It was all just one big complaint session. And that's how critical race theory is infused into our school system.
So it also overlaps with the 1619 Project, which is a project of the New York Times, which is very odd that the New York Times would sponsor this, that teaches history from the point of view of America was founded in 1619 when the first slaves were brought to Jamestown colony. It's questionable as to whether they were the first slaves. Slaves may have gone back to pre-discovery time, by the way. And slavery was going on for 2,000 years before the first slaves were brought here. But in any event, they then build American history as slavery is the defining moment, and all of American history is defined by slavery. And we get to today, and today the words that are often put into the curriculum are systemic racism, pervasive racism. Today, now, is that worked into the curriculum there in Jacksonville?
Absolutely, because that is the basis of critical race theory. The basis of critical race theory is that America is intrinsically racist. So that's how it's tied together with the 1619 Project. So if the 1619 Project is echoing what critical race theory says, that racism is just, you can't escape it in America. It's not a question of, is this person, a decent person? Are they an honest person? Are they this? It's, if you're white, you're an oppressor. If you're non-white, you are oppressed. There's no discovery into the human being themselves. And that is the terrible idea behind the 1619 Project, and also the furthering of this terrible idea of critical race theory. So it's all tied together. And
they don't take account, I gather, Keisha, of the fact that in 2008 and 2012, we elected a black man, or I guess half black, half white, but a black man, and he considers himself African American or black, as president of the United States. A systemically racist country, by definition, would be a country that's almost all racist. In other words, 90% of the population is racist, and a few people aren't. Otherwise, we would be partially racist or marginally racist, which is maybe what we are. But systemically means the whole system. Now, how could 50% of that system vote for a black man? And then a black woman three elections out of four, a black person is elected as president or vice president. Wouldn't that seem to be a terrible contradiction of?
Sure. I would even say even much further back than that. And I said this in my speech, all of America was not racist. So that's why this whole 1619 project, it is extremely flawed. Because I went to visit the Frederick Douglass's home in Washington, D.C. I did the tour.
They took his statue down because he wasn't anti-white enough.
Exactly.
And Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. Exactly. But in Frederick Douglass's home, there is this picture of his dear friend, and I forget his name, but he was a white man. And the tour guide told us the story about how this white man knew that he was going on this mission to die for the abolition of slavery. There were many white people who died alongside other black people for the abolition of slavery and fought for the right for black people to be free. So when we say that America is, that racism just cannot be removed, that it's just ingrained into the system, we are disrespecting those people, white, black, others who hung and died alongside, all these other black folks fighting to free black Americans. It is an insult to their sacrifice. And I find that so disingenuous for us to, for these people to say that they care about America and they care about black folks and they care about black American history, and they don't recognize all of these people who gave their life to fight for the freedom of black Americans.
So there's one point that you made very, very quickly in your statement before the board, which I thought was brilliant. And then you put it in an article in the Western Journal. And it's the damage that critical race theory does to the self-esteem of black children. It's not, obviously it does damage to the whites, making them oppressors. Sometimes you tell somebody he's an oppressor and you teach him to be an oppressor, by the way. You make him a bully, right? And but what happens if you constantly are telling somebody your whole history, you've been oppressed, you've been pushed around. Maybe you say you can overcome it, but for 1,000 years you've been oppressed. A lot of people are going to feel we have no place to go. I think you make that point, from a psychological point of view, very, very effectively, as the damage that's being done to young black children.
Yes, and I find that the media is one of the most psychological abusive people that we have in our country right now. And I won't take that statement back. They play on loop, black men being killed by the police or, something terrible happening to black people. Yes, we should all stand up when injustice is done. We should. This is America. That's how we are supposed to do things. However, when you are constantly playing this, making it seem like it's only happening to black folks, or this is only, a thing that is only geared towards us, that is psychologically damaging, because that is trying to teach our children and just black Americans in general that there is this system just geared towards them where, like LeBron says, we can't even walk outside without being hunted down like dogs. That is so not true. It is so not true. Black Americans are the most successful black people in the entire world.
Yeah, many successes, unbelievable. Just as many as whites. From the time I was a child, Keisha, I was taught in everything in my life of, oh my gosh, over 1,000 years now. I don't know how old I am, but everything has proven to me that people are people. Everybody has their share of good ones, great ones, bad ones, not so good ones. And we all have our great attributes, and we should learn to emphasize that. But thank you very much for your contribution. Good luck to your children. Stay with the fight. The organization is called
Momsforliberty.org.
Momsforliberty.org. You connect with it. And I want to work with you, as I told you, with the Freedom Network. Because I want to see all you moms get together in a big convention I mean, you're stronger than all the First of all, you've got courage and honesty. That defines very few American politicians, by the way. You have courage and honesty, and you love your children. How can you beat that? Thank you, Keisha. You're very important to saving our country.
Thank you so much. What an honor to speak with you, Mr. Mayor.
Take care of yourself. All right. God bless you.
God bless you.
Now we'll take a short break. And when we come back, we will have an interview with Lilith Venetson, who is a teacher in Virginia and can give us the perspective from the point of view of a teacher. Your credit card company found suspicious charges on your card. That's simple identity theft. It's annoying, but they cover it. The type of fraud you really need to worry about is home title theft, a devastating crime that takes you off your home's title. And you're not covered by insurance or most identity theft programs. That's why you need Home Title Lock. Here's how easy it is for cyber criminals to get you. The title documents to our homes are kept online. The thief forges your signature on a quitclaim deed stating you just sold your home, and he's the new owner. Then he borrows money using your home's equity and leaves you in debt. You won't know until late payment or eviction notices arrive. The instant Home Title Lock detects someone tampering with your home's title, they help shut it down. Let's get you protected. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. And enter Rudy for 30 free days of protection. That's promo code Rudy at HometitleLock.com. Thank you for returning, and now we're going to move on and talk to a teacher so we get a second perspective on this. This teacher teaches in Virginia, now presently, I believe, in Fairfax, Virginia, and testified recently before the Loudoun County School Board, which is the school board that's been at the center of many of these disputes about opening of classes, failure to opening of class, the wearing of masks, punishments for students who didn't comply with different rules, and also teaching concepts that come right out of the Critical Lives Matter 1619 playbook. And Lilith Venetson, who we're about to talk to, teaches in the adjoining county, in Fairfax County, and has been subjected to this for the last year and a half, and is shocked by it and feels that teachers have to speak up against it in order to save the next generation of children. So now we'll go to Lilith Venetson. Lilith, thank you very much for being with us. And just tell us a little bit about your background and then how you got involved in this issue, what brought it to your attention originally.
It's an honor to be on your podcast, Mayor Giuliani. Thank you for shedding light on this topic. I've been teaching for a few years. Ever since I was a student in high school, I knew I wanted to go into the teaching profession to mold the next generation of Americans. And that is still the case today. It may seem harder now than ever before, but that is still the case and will always remain the case. And pre-COVID, prior to the last 16 months of chaos and confusion, really nobody was involved with the school system. Nobody was involved with the school board and the curriculum. And even back then, I was shouting from the rooftops that there's something corrupt going on in the school system, but nobody would listen. And so now that people are honed in to these issues, it's bringing in so much more fuel.
So where do you teach?
Fairfax County, Virginia.
And what do you teach?
I teach general music.
And how? Let's go back to pre-COVID for a moment. How would these indications of bias or inappropriate how would they come to your attention?
Well, pre-COVID, there wasn't really. I wouldn't say I saw a lot of lessons in critical race theory. That came after last summer for very obvious reasons. But pre-COVID, we were seeing consistent issues in our school system: lack of consequence, lack of behavioral management, lack of holding our students accountable for their actions, for their grades, lack of a dress code, lack of attendance policy, all these things that are hindering our students from being successful in the real world. So those are the key issues that I saw pre-COVID.
So basically, a general breakdown in teaching children any kind of discipline, the kind of discipline they need to be successful in, let's say, the business world or the work world.
Yeah, if a student was not turning their assignment in, let's say in September, they had until the month of April to turn it in. Oh, you didn't do it on time, no problem. Well, what that does is the obvious. It allows a student to say, well, I'm just going to be lazy. I'm not being held accountable by adults who their job is to hold me accountable and mold me and shape me. And they have this skewed perspective now that when they get into the real world, whatever that is, that they don't have to show up to work on time, or they can show up 2 weeks late if they want to. So we're setting them up for failure as early as elementary school by implementing these no consequence policies in our schools.
And was that was true, would you say, in your school, and with regard to talking to other parents and teachers in other schools in the area? It wasn't just the one school you were in?
Yes, 100%. All across the districts here in Northern Virginia. Some districts more than others, of course, some schools more than others. It really varies on leadership. But at the end of the day, where does the leadership come from? It comes from the school board. So it's all intertwined.
Is it the same school board?
I was working in a few different school districts in Northern Virginia. I was working in Manassas City for a few years. And so it's a much smaller district there. We're a very small city school district. But I was noticing the lack of so many things that I mentioned earlier, the lack of consequences, the lack of pushing our students to be challenged. When I was in high school, I mean, I'm not that much older than these kids. I graduated a class of 2012, Mayor Giuliani. So that's not ages ago.
High school?
High school, yes. And, we were held accountable. We were pushed by our teachers to take honors classes, to take AP courses, to play in sports, to do extracurricular activities. And that pendulum sort of stopped swinging so much in the coming years.
Where was your education, your high school education?
So I'll take you a little bit further back so that this makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
So I'm from Armenia. I was born in Germany. I grew up in Czech Republic. We moved to this amazing nation in 2004. So we lived in California for a few years. I received my high school education here in Manassas City, Virginia.
And that's the place where you say you received what you would say is a good education, an education where you were taught the basic subjects and you were taught the basic discipline that you need to function as an adult in life.
Yes, sir. All of my teachers pushed us. I really didn't notice much bias. Granted, I wasn't paying attention to anything political when I was a student in high school, but our teachers really did a great job of keeping that at home and showing up to teach math, showing up to teach science and things like that.
So then you went to college, got educated, became a teacher. And did you go right back to the Manassas system for your first teaching work?
I worked as a substitute teacher while I was in college. I graduated from a local university, George Mason University.
Oh, I know George Mason. Very nice school.
Mm-hmm.
Very good school.
And I graduated with my undergrad degree in music education. And so I received a phenomenal education at George Mason as well. And I was already working with kids in the classrooms, extracurricular activities, working at camps, working at other, private schools, after school programs, things like that. So I was already getting involved, but I was already starting to see some of the issues, the things that we were lacking in the school system. And I felt really, really bad for these kids because they're vulnerable. They don't know what's going on to them.
So what grade levels, do you teach all grade levels or particular grade levels?
Currently, I teach elementary, so first grade through sixth grade.
And has that been true throughout? Is that basically your specialty, first through sixth?
This past year it has. Prior to that, I worked with my high schoolers for a couple of years, and I also worked a few months with fifth and sixth graders as well.
So you've worked at Manassas, and where else have you worked?
Manassas City, I worked in a private school for a couple of weeks, just an after-school program at Alexandria Day School, worked with their band students over there. And then as of this past year, Fairfax County.
What's the difference? What's the difference in those three?
Well, the Alexandria Day School is a private school, so parents are paying loads of money per student. I forget what the number was. It was somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000 for a student So those parents are, they have a little bit more responsibility to get involved in their child's education and hold the schools accountable and things like that. So that, I would say that for Alexandria Day School. As far as Manassas City goes, it's a small city, it's a small district. Fairfax County has over 188,000 students. Fairfax County is right next to Loudoun County Public Schools, and that is the video that you saw, Mayor Giuliani, of me speaking at the board.
Speaking at the board at Loudoun County.
At Loudoun County, yes, sir. And the reason that myself and other local teachers from neighboring districts went to Loudoun County is because even though Loudoun County has less than 90,000 students versus Fairfax's 188,000, Loudoun is at the top of this country. It is the richest county in the country. The policies that they pass, the curriculum that they pass, it will trickle down to the rest of the districts here.
I think this would be a good time to take a short break. I've been sleeping on my pillows for some time. I love them. They're simply the very best pillows ever made. But I just found out that they also have a wide assortment of other incredible products like their mattress toppers, sheets, towels, and slippers, and more. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. Pick some pillows or pick several of the other great products, and you can get super discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com, promo code Rudy, or call 1-800-725-7759, promo code Rudy right now, and see each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like the pillows, mattress topper, and geyser sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code Rudy for these new great specials. That's mypillow.com, promo code Rudy. Thank you for returning. And the complaint that came to your attention about them, what was that? What made you go and testify about something going on in a neighboring county?
For one, we don't really have a voice in Fairfax County. Their school board meetings were all virtual all year. If they did allow community feedback, it was very limited. And the biggest part too that I want to mention is Loudoun County Public Schools has been on the face of national news for about, I want to say almost a year, if not longer. First, it was a battle of opening up the schools. Then it was a battle of the masks. Then it was a battle of, getting rid of hybrid. Now it's a battle of the curriculum. Well, why should we fight to bring our kids back to Loudoun County Public Schools if we can't fix the curriculum?
Now, is Loudoun County open?
They are open as of mid to April. They've been going back 4 days a week.
But they were not open until then.
They were not. They were doing online.
They lost half a school year and then almost an entire school year. So together, a year and a half of school has been lost by the students in the richest county in America. Is that right?
Unfortunately. And
now, as I survey this, most parochial and private schools were open during that period.
They were, depending on the states. And again, the leadership of the private schools, yes, many of them remained open and had no issues at all.
Now, is there a difference between the curriculum in the Manassas schools and the Fairfax schools and the Loudoun County schools?
I haven't been as involved with the Manassas schools since I started working for Fairfax County. But I think that because it's a smaller city, that they don't have so much of the term I'm going to use wokeness in Manassas City. When I speak with my colleagues that work in Manassas City, and I talk to them and I say, "What have your professional developments been like? Are you forced to go through this training and yada yada?" They say, "My principal hasn't mentioned it. We've just been, teaching like normal. Maybe one thing here or there they'll mention something about equity, but." I don't think in Manassas City it's as accented as it is in Fairfax and Loudoun County. Loudoun County is by far the worst.
So tell me, and Loudoun County then has an impact on Fairfax County because even though it's smaller, it's the big brother, more or less.
Correct. It's the big brother and it's the richest in the county. So if this can happen in Loudoun County, I want the viewers to understand this could happen right under your nose in your school district too.
So tell me what happened in Loudoun County that upset you, and then also as it reflected itself in Fairfax County. But not only you, but other teachers as well.
Sure. What Loudoun County Public Schools has done to our families and most importantly to the students is gut-wrenching. To use all the taxpayer money and our resources and our time and energy to funnel our kids with the idea that this country is racist, that our institutions are racist, that our schools are racist, that the way this country was founded was racist. This is all coming out of Loudoun County, and we have been on national news for a reason. So not only have they been pushing this narrative in our children's brains, Loudoun County also, as of recent, sent out a survey which was worded so unfairly to parents to ask how the school is performing when it comes to teaching about racial matters. Now, Mayor Giuliani, the way that they worded the survey was that you couldn't answer it the way that you want to answer it. You had to answer it the way that they want you to answer it. It was very, very biased. And on top of that, they sent out a survey for students to rat out other students that they think are committing acts of racism. So they're training our kids to, put all their time and energy aside, not worry about playing with their kids in the playground, but, oh, I think so-and-so over there said something that's racist. I'm going to report him to the school. It's gut-wrenching.
So what kind of examples would they give of when I have to report my classmate for racism?
It's sort of like a online form, I believe. The last time I checked, it was like a Google form that they submitted through the county. And it was also a same type of Google form that they sent the survey out for parents of Loudoun County to judge how the district is teaching racial matters.
They give some examples?
There were several questions, but the way it was multiple choice. And so the way that they were wording the question was, do I believe that Loudoun County should spend more time on teaching racial equity or less time on? Do I believe that the staff of Loudoun County is equipped to teach about racial matters? Well, it depends how you view that question, right? And it depends how you want to get your point across that, hey, I don't think it's your place to be teaching this. But there's really no way for you to answer it that way.
Do they discuss white privilege?
White privilege, white supremacy, microaggressions, I mean, you name it.
And do they have, there are some courses, even in the District of Columbia, where they actually give out questionnaires on white privilege to white children.
Yep, they'll give out a survey for, first, I want to make note that first, this goes through the teachers. Now, the professional development courses that these school districts put the staff through is done so that they can indoctrinate us first, make us feel guilty for being white first, have us check our microaggressions first before we go out and indoctrinate your children.
Can you tell me what a microaggression is? I'm not sure I know.
I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
Do they give you examples of it?
To my knowledge, the best that I can do, Mayor Giuliani, and bear with me here because it's a language that I refuse to comprehend. To the best of my knowledge, microaggressions is something that you're born with. If you're born white, you have a level of bias, you have a level of microaggressions. So if, let's say, scenario, you walk into the grocery store and you get into a confrontation with another Black customer, they're going to look at you as a white individual and say that you imparted your white privilege and microaggressions upon the Black individual. You took out your inner hate, your inner microaggressions on the Black individual.
If a white person bumps into me in the grocery store and I get upset and I say something nasty like, "Why did you bump into me?" then that's okay. But if a Black person bumps into me and I say, "Why'd you do that?" that's a microaggression.
Correct. You have to not only train yourself with how to acknowledge Black people in public, but the way you teach Black kids in schools, the way that you pass Black kids through middle school, through high school, onto the graduation stage, but just the way that you interact with them. And they're doing this to the kids. So the reason I speak up is because our kids are innocent. They're vulnerable. They will be best friends with a rock because they're kids. So why should we take a 7-year-old and say, you shouldn't, you're not worthy to be friends with this Black student here because of your privileges. You have to check your white privilege. Well, what does that mean? They're just kids and they want to be friends.
Well, do they get into the like, for example, in both critical race theory, I think even in the 1619 Project, they talk about how math is taught in a discriminatory way because it demands an answer. Do they get into things like that? That's racism, to demand an answer, or to give a grade, or to pick a winner? I mean, are things like that taught?
Yes, the West Coast is notoriously known to have school districts that are pushing the idea that 2 + 2 can equal 5. And that showing your work in math is racist. Getting the correct answer in math is racist. So we take that information, we bring it to the East Coast, right back to Virginia. This is why we're on news for a reason. We funnel that over to Virginia. Well, what is Virginia doing? The Virginia Department of Education wants to limit the amount of math courses that we offer, enhanced math courses that we offer. One of the math courses on that list was Algebra 2. I took Algebra 2 in middle school. So you're telling me that we're going to lower the standards of the kids just so they feel like they're not left out by students who are high performing in math. So we want to make all kids equal by making them equally stupid.
And isn't one of our problems, both internally and externally, that we're behind in math to other countries? I mean, other countries outperform us on math. And one of the complaints also is that there's a discrimination against women in teaching math. So why would we dumb it down? I mean, I went to school, about the time of Abraham Lincoln, and I had to take geometry, trigonometry, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and even a early calculus course before I took it in college. And that was in the 1960s. And then after I left, I know they pretty much were teaching calculus in my school, real calculus in the senior year. So now we don't even teach Algebra 2. I mean, we've gone halfway back.
Correct. I mean, there are students in high school that, their reading level is so.
Is that also, so how is that described as racist? If you can't read, is that racist?
And I'm so glad that you brought this up, because the school systems and the Board of Education, the Department of Ed and the school boards are spending so much time and energy to make everything inclusive and diverse and equity and inclusion and all these great things, right? But who are they hurting the most? Our Black children. They're hurting our Black children the most. They are dumbing them down like no tomorrow. They are limiting they're not challenging them. They're saying, we're not going to challenge you to take calculus. We're not going to challenge you to take honors English, because, we don't want you to feel intimidated by students who are performing well in those classes.
But what happens to the students, whether they're white or Black, who are capable of taking those courses? What about the students that are ready to move on to Algebra 2? They're just not provided?
I'm really not sure what that's going to look like this coming school year. This was a proposal that was brought up a couple of months ago. And so, but what the families do, this is where the role of the family comes in, Mayor Giuliani, when they see that their children are being hindered of excelling and receiving a well-rounded education. Guess what the families do? They pull those kids right back out of public school. They place them either in a private school or they homeschool their child.
And do you have charter schools in Virginia?
We do have charter schools. We have private schools. We have, Catholic schools as well. So there is a plethora of options.
Because charter schools have worked really, really well in some places. But I must say, and now I'm going to be a little partisan, In Democrat states, there's a heavy emphasis against them because of the teachers union. I started charter schools when I was mayor in New York. And under my successor, who was a Republican for a while, we built them, and the governor was a Republican. But as soon as the Democrat mayor came in, he tried to wipe out charter schools. And now the governor has put a limit on charter schools. And charter schools, I should explain to people, are public schools, but they operate under much different rules. The teachers can be evaluated, the students can be evaluated. They don't operate under the same terrible rules that the teachers union imposes. Now, are you a member of the union?
Oh, absolutely not. I am not a member of the union. You are not required to be a member of the union. And so I
You're very lucky, because in New York, which is, a socialist state bordering on going further, you are required to be a member of the union. And if you're a good teacher, that's the last place you should be, because the union represents the bad teachers. So I'll give you an example. When I was the mayor, I offered a pay raise that would be based on accountability. In other words, the best teachers would get amazing pay raises. They could be some of the best paid public employees in the city, as much or more than police officers or firefighters, depending on their ability, because there's nothing that can replace a great teacher, in my point of view. But then the average teachers would get average salary, and the bad teachers would either get low salaries to push them to improve, or we would get rid of them. And the teachers union went to war against me. And then when I tried to evaluate teachers, because I had all these CompStat programs to evaluate people, they refused to participate. They didn't want teachers evaluated. So I came to the conclusion that the teachers union really doesn't represent the children at all. They don't matter. And they don't represent the good teachers. They represent, the teachers who are accused of sexual misconduct, who we're required to keep for 3 or 4 years before we can prove it. We have to pay them. And they fight for them. They fight for them. And so what I did was, I had them prosecuted. I could put them in jail faster than I could remove them as teachers. So if you get a school lifted from those union rules that hurt children, the school can succeed. But a lot of this is supported by the teachers union, isn't it? A lot of this, because then you don't have to evaluate the teacher either, right? I mean, if you have an Algebra 2 course, and all the kids in the Algebra 2 course fail, the teacher looks pretty bad, right? So just don't have an Algebra 2 course. And, just teach them. And then if 2 and 2 equals 5, that could be a pretty good test result for everybody. I mean, do people say this with a straight face? Do people actually, do intelligent teachers say with a straight face, you don't need an answer in math?
It's really not the teachers that have all the control and the power.
Of course they don't.
As we
and you're
just
right.
mentioned,
Correct.
right?
That's correct.
Right. And as we just mentioned, the teachers unions, these folks are really pressuring the school board's decisions to pass curriculum, the way that they hire, bringing in equity officers to train teachers and things like that. So they're getting a lot of pressure. The school board is receiving a lot of pressure from the teachers unions, and also things like the NAACP, which we see happening here in Northern Virginia. So if we go back to the West Coast, the UTLA, I believe it's the largest or the second largest teachers union in the country, and that's the teachers union of LA. They have been pushing so hard to keep their schools closed. They've been pushing so hard to ensure that teachers and students are wearing a mask when they are on Zoom. But then their teachers get exposed by going on vacation to, Dubai, somewhere across the country, posting photos on Instagram, on social media of them on vacation, not masked, not socially distanced. And everyone goes, wait a minute, you are keeping my child home because you fear for your life. You physically fear for your life to return to school to teach, but you are taking vacation and you're leaving and you're going out of this country. Mayor Giuliani, I have a friend in California. She's got two high school students. One of her high school children, one of her children's teachers was teaching from Dubai for several months. Can you believe that?
A tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy, but it's exactly what I saw would happen 20 years ago when I dealt with the UFT. The UFT is the New York City version, might be the largest. We have over 1 million children. It was run by the same person who runs the National Union now, Weingarten. There's just no concern for the children. The children they weren't even a product. I mean, I've dealt with all unions, and they even have concern for the product they make because it has something to do with their success. The teachers' union was completely insensitive to the tremendous damage it did to children by exposing them to inadequate teachers and sometimes criminal teachers who they would defend. There was a saying about New York City, which has a terrible school system, maybe the worst in the world or in the country. The saying was, everybody has a lobbyist in the New York City school system. The teachers have the biggest one, the administrators, the janitors, everybody who works for it. The only people that has no representatives are the children. Because the system is a job protection system for the teachers, not for the students. And this is happening all over America now. And they're using it to teach people to hate America. I mean, in the long run, what you're telling me is that in Loudoun County, whatever we want to call it, critical race theory, 1619, whatever, they're teaching people that America is a hateful, evil place. What a horrible country we're going to have if everybody believes we're hateful. So how do you combat it? Well, what do you do, and what do the other teachers do? How does one teacher like you're one teacher, you teach music, you do your job, I'm sure, very well, as well as you can. Do they force you to teach things you don't want to teach?
To a certain extent, it really depends on the leadership of your school, I would say. Now, at the end of the day, and this is why I made the crucial message at the school board speech directed to parents, to teachers, and to students. I have nothing to address to the board. I want to encourage those who are, I want to encourage those that are on the front lines to do something. So when I spoke specifically about teachers, I mentioned that we don't work for the school board. We work to shape the next generation of Americans. So if you're sitting through professional development and they're talking about you need to check your white privilege and your supremacy and your microaggressions and all this stuff, put that aside, walk into your classroom and your four walls, and you teach your students the way that you teach. Are you a music teacher? Teach them music. Are you a science teacher? Teach them science. I mean, why would I alter my lesson plans in any way to say, you know what? The national anthem is racist. And Mayor Giuliani, I will let you know that in a professional development that I had with fellow music educators within Fairfax County Public Schools early before school year started, I recall some music teachers debating about teaching the national anthem because it's rooted in racism. I couldn't believe my ears.
Well, I am very, very proud that you and other teachers stood up. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to see that people are fighting back for liberty and freedom and for what a great country this is. I want you to know that there are a lot of people who support you, and I'll be in touch with you because I'd really like to see if we can get you involved with the Freedom Network so that we can illustrate these on a national basis. Because you know from telling me about California and elsewhere, you're not alone. Unfortunately, Virginia is just one example of many, many, many where they are trying to indoctrinate our children, undermine our school system, and it seems like ultimately destroy our country and what we believe about our country, which is true. It's not as if this is a country with just an awful history. The only thing about our country is we're a big evil country. I mean, we did wrong things. We also did some of the greatest things any nation has ever done in the history of the world. And we've got to teach both. But thank you, Willard, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Giuliani. God bless you.
I believe that Willard has very adequately described, from the point of view of the teacher, very many of the same things that Keisha King did. There's obviously more to it than this. That's all we could cover in this period of time. But we're going to stay on top of this, and we're going to include these people in our Freedom Network and in the Save America movement, because this is one of the big pillars of the socialist takeover, communist takeover of us, which is indoctrinating our children in these false and evil theories, and the success they've had in doing it. And these are the people on the front lines fighting back. That's what we need in all these areas. We need people on the front lines fighting back. They got to be at a critical mass as we enter the 2022 elections and then the 2024 elections, because if they don't, they're going to steal our country from us. These are the ones who can illustrate how they are stealing our country, how they are teaching our children to hate the greatest nation in the history of the world. We're not going to let them do it, because we're all going to cooperate together. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that over the course of the next several weeks. So stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly. Thank you for listening to us, and God bless America.